Right. That is really not so nice, but yeah. Anyway, I would like to welcome my very esteemed panel here. I think we're very fortunate to sit with four of the true leaders, certainly in our markets, but in the Asia-Pacific market, and now much more in the European market. Dillip will talk about that one. It's also very timely because some of these guys have done some awesome deals just recently. In fact, to that point, we were all surprised when Dillip showed up because we thought, he's busy buying Spanish companies. This really is as Manav introduced yesterday and Nihil introduced or hammered home, it's a conference on innovation and on a sort of a novel and new and better, hopefully, look at hospitality in general. So what I would like you to do, all of you, is to interrupt us as much as you can. Also, because I think this whole thing of us doing all the talking up here and then having 5 minutes at the end, jump in when you need to. You're perfectly welcome. Michael, if you want to tell Patrick to do something different, you do that. Bill's not in the room, so Dillip will have to handle himself. The point of this is really that a lot of things have happened between these guys and the companies they either acquired or are merging with or culturally integrating and so forth. It's nice to have your input on it. So without waking you up too much, let's get going. Thomas, first of all, 5,300 hotels worldwide, 900 managed, 800,000 rooms. Thomas has been 30 years with IHG. You must have seen some fairly remarkable changes, right? Expansion and Kimpton, Kimpton, you bought it in 2014?
Absolutely right.
And you are just about to push it out to a wider market than what you were...
Absolutely right. Michael, just to correct you, we have 5,400 hotels, not 5,300 hotels. We are in over 100 countries present. Mm-hmm. And IHG, yes, we bought in 2014 Kimpton Hotels, and we have worldwide about 83 properties. The first one we've just opened actually in Europe, in Amsterdam. And you must have heard that IHG has also taken over Principal Hotels in the UK, which gives us a very, very strong luxury presence in the UK, especially. And I'm sure that there will be opportunities for luxury boutique lifestyle hotels. We have a focus in Asia for sure. There is a Kimpton coming to Bali, and we're opening hopefully by beginning of next year. Serena, correct me if I'm wrong, so I think it is beginning of next year. It will be a beautiful property, the right market, and of course, if the opportunity is right, if the location is right, we are looking into other locations in Asia as well.
All right, let's stay at the luxury end and talk to us a little bit about Regent. Okay,
Regent, yeah, I'm quite excited really about Regent.
That's good.
So it's an Asian brand, as you know, has a great legacy, especially here in Bangkok. In this property, as we all know, it started as a Regent. So we've bought those 6 property. We have a 51% stake. It is, as I said, 6 properties around the world. The beauty of it is that we are quite serious about the luxury space that we're entering into. Globally, we're talking about a $60 billion opportunity, and that's where IHG is serious to tap in. And on long term, we are expecting and we are targeting about 40 properties, and that's our long-term target. But it's a beautiful brand to build on, and we're definitely going seriously into a luxury space. And to underpin what I was just saying, actually, is that we've created now in Singapore a center of excellence only for our luxury brand. We will keep this a bit separate. In October, there will be further announcements about our brand, how we are moving forward. but it's definitely one of our main focus points.
Fantastic. At the other end of the scale, at the the broader market, if you like, Staybridge, these types of brands, what are your strategic plans? How are you going to?
Absolutely. Thailand is one of our key markets here in Southeast Asia, and really great news to share is that we've signed just yesterday a deal with Rantakon Assets that's officially announced yesterday during the press conference, a multiple property deal of Staybridge Suites, Holiday Inn Express, and Holiday Inn. So we are bringing more into the mainstream brand into the country. That's our engine. That's where we are growing. And as you know, we've also created a new brand that's been launched in the US. It's called Avid. It's going also in the selected service section, slightly positioned from the price point below the Holiday Inn Express. And we have incredible signings, over 70 properties already in the US. And what we are planning to do is on midterm to bring this brand also out of the US, but definitely Holiday Inn Express and our core brand Holiday Inn, which is 54% of our total estate globally. Yes, huge opportunities.
No stopping you. Okay. I told the guys before getting on this panel that they could get a couple of minutes of, promoting themselves. If you feel at some point that this is getting just too much, you just raise your hand and we'll, yeah, that's right. Do it, yeah? Patrick, brands, lots of stuff happening. I think a lot of people in this room would like to understand a little bit more about the Banyan Tree integration, how that works, the overall idea of restructuring there. You can then talk to us about Mövenpick, you can talk to us about Fairmont Raffles, AccorHotels, Bikini. So anywhere you'd like to start. Mm-hmm. Again.
Thank you. Certainly a lot has happened over the last 3 years. I think we grew from having 15 brands to, I think last count is about 27. So it's been really a huge development, and this is really great for the group, obviously. And definitely now we have a huge presence in the upscale and luxury sector, which is really what we wanted to be present in. And I think since we took over the Fairmont Raffles and Swiss Hotel, the growth in the number of properties that has been developed over the past couple of years has been pretty impressive. So there's a dynamic behind that. So over 560 property in upscale and luxury. So this really changed the perspective of the group overall, and we've seen that happening in all Asia Pacific in particular. This year is going to be a great year for us because we are going to achieve by the end of the year 1,000 properties. So this really established the group. We are number one in terms of a network in most of the countries we operate in Asia Pacific in particular. I think Michael knows we have nearly 20% of the market share in Australia, for example, so it's really huge. In Thailand, we've been here. We are celebrating our 30 years presence here in Thailand, so Thailand's been really good to us. We have now 75 hotels. And yes, I think if you look at the brands, the new brand we acquired also, I think now we are, beside the luxury and upscale presence, we also firmly now launching also our lifestyle brand. We have a whole collection of lifestyle brand, starting with a So, of which, of course, the first one was, second one was here built in Bangkok, which has been very successful, but also with acquisition of Mama Shelter, the acquisition also of 25 Hours, and we also have on the lower scale in lifestyle, we have the Joe & Joe brand, but we are launching, and then of course Ibis Style, which has really also been successful in Thailand in particular. So really a lot happening, and I think this is great. Mövenpick, I think it's a bit too early to speak about this. It's just been announced. I think it will take a few months for the official agency to allow us to really integrate this brand. But of course, it's also another great news. It provides us, another offer, and it will enable us to develop in some markets where we are already present with other brands. So it would slot in nicely, I think, in our upscale offer. Yeah.
Banyan Tree, you deftly avoided that.
No, well, you know, so many brands to speak about, which is great, right?
In only 2 minutes, right?
All right, no, Banyan Tree, I think, you know, this, as you know, we took a minority stake into the company, and we have an agreement with Banyan Tree, which is really a great brand. They have a, you know, a great offer in resort in particular. I think it's complementary to what we have. So the agreement is that Accor will be able to develop Banyan Tree Hotel and operate Banyan Tree Hotel, except 2 or 3 markets, of course, where they've been present strongly, like in Thailand and in Vietnam. So I think for the time being, it's an agreement where we start to distribute the hotels on our platform. And then, of course, we are now also developing and offering the Banyan Tree among our, you know, offer.
So using the platform, using loyalty programs, using anything that has to do with distribution and channel management and so forth?
Correct. I think in terms of the concept, the development of new properties, of course, Banyan Tree will keep the hand, you know, with their team because they have the knowledge of that. But in terms of the support, total support, loyalty program, effectively, as you say, and the distribution platform, that will be distributed through our platform.
Just on the hotels, I struggle with this. Marriott do a little bit of the same thing. You have an M Gallery by Sofitel in Kyoto. How does M Gallery by Sofitel, how does it work? What does the client buy, M Gallery or Sofitel? I mean, it's the edition, it's Carlton here in town, right?
Right. These things change over time, right? I think initially we wanted to be present in a luxury boutique hotel. Right? We were thinking at the time of a Roland Chateau in Europe, for example. I think this is how it all started. There is definitely a demand on the market for owners who have a strong influence on the property develop, a boutique hotel, a luxury space with a certain character. And we wanted to launch this new brand. As you know, it's always difficult to launch a new brand the first few years, right? So we wanted to ride on the distribution channel, you know, on Sofitel initially. And so it has been really great for us. We developed over 100 properties in the past 6-7 years. We have a great presence in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand and also in Vietnam. Kyoto is going to be a great addition that will open the first quarter next year. Yes, by Sofitel is really to establish the presence, to use the platform, the website initially, but this brand is eventually destined to fly on its own, I believe.
I see. So it's a support in the initial years, and then
Probably.
you let it go as an M Gallery. It sits in the same basket as your white labeling, right? The Muse and Lang Xuan and so forth are AccorHotels, but they're essentially white label.
Correct. Each property has got its own name. You know, you got the Hotel des Arts in Hanoi. You have the Muse. You have the V Hotel. You know, so each hotel has got its own identity, and it's labeled M Gallery by Sofitel.
Okay. If it wasn't clear to you guys, again, raise your hands. It's the old guys in the room like me who get a little bit confused here. Tell us a little bit about bikini.
Well, I don't really want to develop that one. That's not something that we have in Asia Pacific. A bit too early for me here.
Okay. It wouldn't work in Asia, you think?
I don't want to comment on that one.
Okay.
Yet.
I mean, okay. So I'm not gonna pump you
but
on
you know,
it.
I think Asia is obviously a huge market, right?
Yeah.
And I think definitely what is happening socially in Asia is pretty much a mirror image of what's happening in the rest of the world. So I think any brand that Accor develops or acquires has a future in Asia, obviously. But it's a bit too early for me to comment on this now.
Right. Good deal, though. Anyway, Marland, it's a fantastic return of Mr. Blaiklock to the Centara group. Obviously, it's funny because you're sitting between two guys who you either directly or indirectly have in some ways worked with, right? With Sofitel at the time in the early years, under Centara and so forth, and now the brand in their own right. Tell us a little bit about your pipeline, your strategic sort of growth of Centara, Muscat's a gorgeous hotel. What's happening, and what are you actually doing in there?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm really happy to be back. Of course, Thailand is no stranger to people coming back, in some instances more than once. Today, the group has 38 operating hotels, 33 in Thailand. That makes us the largest operator in Thailand of Thai origin. Obviously, Patrick pips us a little bit in Thailand. But today we're in 5 countries. The 5th one was indeed Oman, our first foray into the Middle East. We're interested in the Middle East and developing in that area. We have an exciting project with Nikhil in Dubai, one of 2 resorts that should be ready for the World Expo in 2020, October 2020. And then we're also developing in the region. Last year we opened our first cozy hotel. It's what we call an affordable lifestyle hotel for the tech-savvy traveler. No telephone in the room. Why would such a traveler need a telephone in the room? They do everything with their smartphone, so we don't distance them from that device. But we have big plans for cozy, primarily in Thailand. Our plan is to grow that to about 38 properties over the next 5 years. We have an aggressive development plan. We haven't been growing as much as my neighbors on this panel, but we aim to change that. All of our growth thus far has been organic, mostly of the most difficult kind, greenfield, building it, opening it, launching it. And our plan, certainly in our plans, is an acquisition. Not on the scale, perhaps, of my neighbors, but certainly if we're going to go into a new market, it makes no sense to do that for one hotel in Europe or one hotel in the Caribbean. But if it's a group of hotels, that's something we're certainly interested in.
And cozy, more urban resort, combination of the 2, hub and spoke?
Actually, it's a mix of the 2. The first one is in Samui on Chaweng Beach. Each cozy will have a distinct, actually in the name of the hotel, in the case of Samui Chaweng Beach, so it'll be identified to its location and an activity center around that location. We are, of course, part of a bigger group, the Central Group, and we have a relationship specifically with CPN and Robinsons to develop hotels around some of the malls that they're developing. In our pipeline, the 40 hotels for cozy, maybe 10 of them will be through the CPN Robinsons joint venture, either joint venture or will purely manage.
Makes sense, leveraging. In terms of going into new markets or growing inorganically, tell us about buying 24% of Dusit.
That wasn't my checkbook. That's what I'll tell you. No, as everyone here knows, CPN is in a joint venture with Dusit for the redevelopment of the site where the original Dusit is located. I think that's over a $1 billion US development, including retail, commercial, residential, and a new hotel. My understanding is the new hotel is in the 200-room range, so a good deal smaller than the existing one. That's a 50-50 joint venture, not strictly between the the commercial and retail with CPN and the hotel with the hotel. I think it goes across that, and the official reports are that CPN is not getting into the management of Dusit. It's purely just to have a piece of, a larger share of that particular deal. And certainly we're not involved in any of that.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. Right.
We're good friends, so.
Right. So speaking of smoke and fire, you go in and you start buying up little bits of shares here and there of NH hotels in the market. And then you think, okay, well, people are definitely watching us. Let's do a better one. And then you put $226 million into an 8.6% stake. So what's that about, Dillip?
Well, I think Mina has always been very strategic. We don't want to be the biggest and the strongest, but we want to be the most profitable hotel company in the world. And that's what we've demonstrated, over the last 10 years to the market. Our shareholders have enjoyed almost a 25% compounded annual CAGR growth year on year. In terms of profits, our share price has been very strong, has been growing quite strongly. And we've always been opportunistic, and we've been very strategic. We have 5 clear brands, which are very have clear brand values. We're not a company who would like to mix and match and buy hundreds of brands. That's not our strategy, because you would spoil the market. We are also owners of St. Regis, Four Seasons, JW Marriott, and we can see the drama, what's happening as well as owners. So from that perspective, we saw a clear opportunity here because if you look at NH, the portfolio itself, it actually complements our side, because we're very strong in Asia, Middle East, Africa, Australia. They're very strong in Europe, South America, and the US and places. So when you put the two things together, it's a great puzzle. It really blends really nice. And the main thing was, that both inbound and outbound also works really well, because they felt that Mina would be a great strategic partner to come and add value from an Asian hospitality perspective, because Asia is where the demand is, and you can see the growth. And when you look at countries like India, China, and places like that, which is just fueling the growth, and taking those customer segments to Europe, and also bringing the European customer segments to us would have been. It's a great story. So that was our thinking behind actually investing, taking a stake in NH. We actually shocked the market a little bit yesterday because no one actually expected for us to make this move. And people say, why 8.6%? But there is always a story behind it, and the story hasn't finished yet. There is more to come. So I think.
Don't leave us like that. No.
No, I think.
Tell us the story.
No, I think this. Well, as we've done before, we acquired Oaks in 2011, and with 30 hotels at that time. Today we've taken the portfolio to about 55 hotels, and taken the Oaks brand outside Australia. We acquired Tivoli 2 years ago. Again, we did the same story. This year, actually, we've renovated all the properties, and Q1 we actually showed our RevPAR numbers were up almost 40% for the Tivoli brand, which is a great story. And I hope we have something similar with NH. Again, all we are trying to do is to be a strategic partner and also make sure the profits are growing, and it's going to be strong. The company itself is quite strong, so they produce about 260 million euros of EBITDA, which is not a small number, it's a big number. And they've got 382 hotels across the globe. So we see it as a great fit, and hopefully, it will grow. So for us, it's important that we maintain the luxury segment, with the Anantaras, and that continues to grow. We've got some fantastic trophy properties. Our property in Naladu was voted as the best in the world. So again, being truly luxury on that side. Then we have Avani, we have Tivolis, we have the Oaks brand, and hopefully now we'll have NH to also expand into this part of the world.
Yeah, I think the market, yes, they were shocked, but they could perfectly see this, the synergy of it, its geographical spread, but it's also leveraging your F&B experience, your purchases in the UK last year or this year, and rolling that into integrating more with hotels that probably historically weren't really known for great F&B.
Absolutely, because I think today, we talk about innovation and we talk about thinking outside the box, And people were a little bit surprised as to why we went and acquired a restaurant group, which is a highly acclaimed group of restaurants in the UK. But what they don't understand is, like, whether we like it or not, hotels cannot run F&B, and hotels are not good in running restaurants. So you have to create a destination, you have to create an experience, and that's one of the reasons we acquired the Wolseley, the Colbert, the Belanger, and these brands, which we can then bring into our hotels and make it a destination place so that people come to experience the Wolseley or people come to experience the Belanger. We also then acquired Benihana. That was announced about 2 weeks ago when we acquired the brand. So we own Benihana now outside the US and Japan. And again, that's a brand which we can roll into any of our hotels. And it doesn't have to be just in our group. It can be in any other groups. It can be in a Hilton. It can be in any other places. So it, again, creating true destination like restaurants is a game changer, I think, in the future. And we all, as hoteliers, have to realize that sometimes you have to accept our own weaknesses and quickly move, so that you then convert that weakness into a strength. And basically, that's what we've done.
Fascinating. Actually, I have to say that the long-term strategy of mine has been really impressive. So kudos. Yeah.
Thank you.
Tivoli was an excellent purchase.
It was a fantastic deal. Like, again, buying assets at 100,000 euros a key, you can't even build a hotel for 100,000 euros a key.
Incredible.
So,
let's talk a little bit about brands. Can you have, I know it's been asked before, but can you have too many brands?
As an owner?
Any of you?
As an owner, I would say no, because
Patrick, I know what you're going to say.
I can talk about it from an owner's perspective and a shareholder's perspective. Like, we're in this business to make money. We're not in this business to have a glory of
or things like that.
So, and we see that with our St. Regis next door. Suddenly, Marriott acquires Starwood, and it's a dog's meal, actually, and I'm sorry to say that, but it is, because they're competing within their own thing. They're competing with the Sheraton, they're competing with the Westin, they're competing with the W. Everything is, so where is the new customer coming from? It's not. So as an owner, and you can see it, like, some of the owners have now started to actually raise their voices against some of the big consolidations to say they're not happy. So I'm sorry, I have to always spike it, and I think this is where the conferences are, where we have to be quite honest and quite open with our opinions, and that's pretty much what we say. Like, we have a JW Marriott in Phuket. The ADR has been growing like 3% when the inflation has been in Thailand growing at much higher levels, and the wage cost has been going at much higher levels. So the curve is going the opposite way, So that's, anyway. It's not against Marriott, but it's just against some of the bigger brands, actually, So it's not.
You'll note that I'm the only one that's not listed, sitting up here. So all of these guys, we're trying to get as much out of them as we possibly can, right?
And it's not a sales pitch, actually. So
No.
You're right. But let me just, maybe 2 words, actually,
Sure.
on your question on too many brands, or, for IHG we have 13 brands, and of course there's a consolidation going on, but I believe our strategy is also very, very clear that we are tapping into the market where the right brand really fits. So, and of course, we are not necessarily looking into segmentations, but occasions, and we really look into the needs of what the guest really wants. All of our brands, the existing brands, our core brands, our intercontinental brands, all the new brands that we are acquiring showing very, very healthy growth. And what, from our perspective, and we are one of the largest hotel operators internationally, we are on the look. So if it fits into the strategy, then we will definitely put this into our brand portfolio, carefully.
Actually, if you look at this, the whole brand space, it's an interesting panel to sit with here because, Dillip, to his point, it's very defined in each of these hotels, each of the brands within their portfolio of assets. Whereas on the Accor side, it's probably more horizontal, right? You have an integration of areas like, or brands like 1-5 Stay, 24 Hours, all of these. So you stretch across more customer segments, client bases, distribution channels. Obviously, you know what this is leading to eventually, right? So, Patrick, speak a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is going, I mean, to answer your question, the first question, from our point of view, of course, I cannot say we cannot have enough of brands, but I think the important part for Accor was the first group to really be present in a major segment, the economy, the mid-scale, the upscale, and luxury. And now we have a nice balance of this. In Thailand, for example, we have roughly a third of our portfolio number of rooms in each of the segments. So I think we've been integrating vertically in terms of comfort level, definitely. But you're right. Also, we are looking at integrating and thinking another way, I think. For the past 3 years, I think Sébastien has really pushed the group towards having a platform. I think the ambition for the group today is much more than being a hotelier. Yeah. I think the acquisition of John Paul, the concierge service, for example, or Noctis, the luxury restaurant chain in Paris, One Fun Stay, of course, and which offers today roughly about 10,000 luxury apartments. So we wanted, and I think we want to be also the disruptor group into a very traditional business. I think when he took over, he said, really Accor is a sleeping giant. I mean, he had this speech in Hong Kong, I think, a couple of years ago in High Cap, which was very interesting. I think he really firmly wants to position the group as a group for the future. Otherwise, all the big groups as we are today, we might die. Look at what happened to the Nokia, to BlackBerry, and whatsoever, right, in other industry. I think it's important for us to think well ahead. And I think what is important for us today, with the emergence of blockchain, the emergence of social media, is really how we can grow our loyalty base. And today, of course, we have over 50 million members, Accor Le Club members. But as you know, we have a joint venture with Huazhu in China with over 100 million members, and we are looking at how we can grow our platform, our base, to benefit all of the business that we have. Another area also that we are looking at today is to think, and I think yesterday there was some interesting conversation about innovation, about how we can think different. And I think the great advantage of hotel chains and hotels in particular is their location. We are right in the middle of cities. And I think today owners, developers are looking at how they can maximize revenue per square meter. And I think obviously we are also very involved in F&B development also. We believe it is really challenging, obviously. There's huge competition outside in the market. But I think we're developing something. We developed an app called Accor Local, where we actually we are testing in certain hotels in various parts of the world some solution to generate revenue in the hotel, among the people living around the hotel, right? So, for example, I'm not sure this is going to be successful, widely over the world, but in Paris, we've signed a contract with the post office. So instead to go to the post office after 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. when it's closed, you can actually go for a service at the hotel. And, we have a commission on that service. So there's so many examples how we can actually develop revenues at the hotel all over the world. So I think there's really a great potential. I think Accor, we are very ambitious. We are looking at the big guys in social media. We're looking at Baidu. We're looking at Facebook, and we are looking at how we can have a presence in a mind share of the people present on social media in every angle. And this will obviously also generate more revenue into our main business, which is and will remain for a long time the hospitality business.
This is a plug for my company. We spend a lot of time in creating virtual travel before the resorts open. Nobody today make a decision without checking YouTube or their destination. So the whole virtual travel prior to openings and giving impressions of the resorts essentially data banking, the historical elements of the sites and so forth. All of these things are incredibly important and become the depository and the future work for these neighborhood platforms and all the digitization that we are seeing there. I know Sebastian also hired his chief disruption officer, right? Is he still with you?
Oh, definitely still with us. Yes, I think, Sebastian, we always thought, that we are too traditional. I think it's very important also to have in our team looking at disruption, looking at disruptors. And I think
your shadow committee?
And this is one of the aspects also. But yes, we were, I think, the first group to create this chief disruption officer, which is really mostly looking out in the market at opportunities. What is new? There are things which are happening every single day, right? But also there are also businesses which do not last. So it's important to look at what is existing and try to foresee what will be successful, not only for 1 year or 2 years, but 5 years, 10 years, which is worth the investment. So not only do we have this officer and his team looking at opportunities at other business, especially looking at the sharing economy, but also, yes, he has launched what we call the shadow COMEX. And this is very interesting. This is replicating actually the executive committee on Accor with a young generation. And these people change every year, and they are being called to the office. I think every single time there is a COMEX happening, which is roughly bi-monthly, and look at the subject that the COMEX will actually be talking about. So they really have a huge responsibility to provide some other angle, other views on the key issues of Accor. And I think this is something also that we have been developing not only at the headquarters in Paris, but also in regions. For example, here I've created a next-gen committee with people between 20 and 30 years old from the various countries that my region consists of. So we have Filipino, we have people from Vietnam, from Thailand, and I was very, of course, happy to have for 2 consecutive years someone from the Seoul Bangkok actually being part of the Shadow COMEX in Paris. So this is great, because even if you have a great executive team on the regional side, to be able to give them specific subject and think about what can be different, creates great, I think, ideas, and also creates a certain motivation for the traditional team, right, to really be pushed, and think differently.
Right. So we talk the sort of the digital space, the innovate space, and yeah, probably a big portion of this audience would agree that Accor are definitely out there. I just want to return to all of this thing about, or this topic of integrating or buying brands up, and then the cultural aspect, the corporate culture aspect of merging companies. We have a number of executive search people in the conference here. There's got to be some growing pains, some integration pains, some cultural issues. There's some historical issues when you start buying these companies. How do you individually tackle these? Are these things that are coming to the forefront, or have you got tools to work through these? Personally, obviously, at my time with Meridian and Starwood and so forth, I experienced it. It was handled exceptionally well at the time. I'm not sure that this second iteration of Starwood Marriott, to Dillip's point, has been as successful possibly. There's also been a lot more of, I wouldn't say gripe, but opportunity to voice their experiences on social media than probably 10 years earlier when during my time with Meridian and Starwood. How are you dealing with it? What happens when you start taking in another big giant? Thomas.
Well, yeah. So, out of my experience, the last relatively big acquisition that we did was in 2014 with Kimpton, and it was very much focused on the United States, and it took us some years to merge the cultures. But what we really did is to keep the operational part of the business relatively separate. So we still have the previous Kimpton executives supporting our business basically, and The integration as such has taken us some time, I have to say, yes. It would be too early to comment now on Regent. It's a relatively, at this stage, small portfolio. And the integration starts as we speak, and that's what I've just mentioned before. Therefore, we are very, very careful. We are integrating the team of Regent. We have built a center of excellence in Singapore, as I've mentioned before. But the advantage, of course, of having other brands joining IHG is the contribution that IHG then gives in return to the owner, to the investor. But to your point, really, of course, there's a strong IHG culture. We have our values, we have our behaviors, we have our certain drivers. That takes time, and it took us some time actually for Kimpton, 3 to 4 years now, and now we are ready to roll that brand out and in United Forces, yeah.
Patrick, talk to us.
All right. Yes, we've integrated a few companies in the past few years, and I've been part of this, obviously, and it's interesting. I think the most important, obviously, is that is how you keep people motivated, right? I think, I mean, if I look at the latest example, which is the Fairmont Raffles and Swiss Hotel, I think if I look at different angle, because in my region in particular, we've had quite a few examples. I think on obviously, what people are looking at is when you come from a smaller company is the strengths that will bring to the hotel, to the general managers in particular, and the sales and marketing team in terms of the loyalty program, the platform, the distribution channel. So it provides them
and the opportunities,
the tools to be able to maximize their revenue. So on that side, it's pretty positive, right? And beside this, I think we are very careful also on maintaining certain very strong culture. In Raffles, you have a very strong culture. So we were very happy to integrate the skill and the skill level that you have in those properties, which benefits actually on our entire upscale and luxury portfolio. Of course, we also, as I mentioned earlier, growing so rapidly. Yes, I think this year we anticipate to open a hotel every 33 hours, and next year I think Goras is every 30 hours. So I think, yes, we do create a lot of opportunities. So perhaps if you are the CEO or COO of a smaller company, can we find a job for that position? Not sure. But I think on all the management side, there's so much skill, so many new jobs created, that we can make some lateral moves and integrate most of the people. So I don't think we have suffered from social issues within the groups that we've been integrating. And I think I just did my general managers conference in a Sofitel a couple of months ago, and to see all these new heads, mingling, with all the other brands, and I think everybody was perfectly happy. It was during Songkran time, obviously, so a celebratory period in Bangkok, but I think everybody was happy about it.
I think I'll speak up before it moves to Dillip. And you're wondering on the basis of what experience, but
that's right.
What I will say is, I mean, we've been looking at possible acquisitions, and on our scale, if we look at something like we were looking at a deal in Japan, then that's just to add value to our overall organization. So we would buy it, we would leave it. We're looking for good, good acquisitions, obviously, that can add value, and just manage it, let it be managed separately.
Much like New World Rosewood did in the first years and so forth.
Something like that. Yeah.
Dillip, maybe briefly.
Well, I think at the end of the day, our industry is all about human and human capital, and it's all about people. When what we've done is because we've been very strategic in terms of the brands and what we acquire and all those things. And say, for example, when we acquired Oaks, we were buying the human capital there and the people's strength. And so basically what we did was we strengthened that platform, and then we grow the platform from a human capability perspective. And all we are doing is we're supporting them with technology, with our infrastructure, and with everything else we have, so that you're creating a larger business and really adding value to the customers. And the same thing with Tivoli, But there are some brands, when they acquire something and they say, it's a great acquisition and we're going to make $220 million saving, and it's coming from cutting corporate costs. It's not a clear message to send. It's good for us, because you pick up some great
People.
talent and great people, which we have done over the years. It's fantastic, and but it's a clearly wrong message, like some of the big hotel companies, because they're trying to produce earnings, and sometimes they buy the wrong thing, and all they're doing is justifying by cutting people, but it doesn't work. But cutting people, coming back to cutting people, is that say, with our experience here in Asia, with our ownerships, we've seen this. We've seen this with some of the big consolidations. Actually, the people who were strong and managing the asset on our behalf were gone because they were being taken over by someone else. And basically, they actually put their people who were actually weaker than the people we had before.
Yeah.
So you're creating a rut people who are really not, who don't have the talent and the skill set to manage such great portfolios. So it becomes a really difficult game. But as long as you plan it properly and you execute your plan and make sure that the people are protected and the people are developed and the people have a good career progress, that's what they want, and because otherwise, they don't want a message to come from the CEO to say, oh, we're cutting your corporate cost by $200 million because we promised our investors that it's a great deal, and the only way for us to deliver the deal is to cut corporate costs. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I agree. Let's open it up. Questions for these formidable gentlemen here? Any of you, that's if any of you are awake. No? No questions for them? Nothing? Really? Somebody say something. Okay, I'll tell you one. I have one stinger for these guys. I don't know if you guys have noticed over the last couple of weeks the amount of privacy policy updates and changes you get to anything you subscribe to, right? Everybody are updating. Is that Cambridge Analytica, Facebook? Is it Trump? Is it elections? Is it, where does this come from? What I want to ask these guys is that yesterday I got Shangri-La, and it was the first hotel company, but I must have gotten 40 before that from any Tom, Dick, and Harry small software company. Now, if I am sitting with 100 million or 150 million users here as Patrick is, or Accor, all of you guys have a duty of care in terms of your information and data. Isn't it becoming tougher and tougher to protect that? And what are you doing?
I think, if I may, what you're referring to is a preface to the implementation of the new laws in Europe.
Correct. The
GDPR,
yes.
which has been getting a little bit of airtime with Zuckerberg's interviews in Europe.
Yeah.
They haven't gone as far as to say what the penalties will be for Facebook, but the penalties under GDPR can be very, very high. It concerns, of course, Europeans traveling outside into our area. It's an interesting question because, generally speaking, everything that happens in Thailand is governed by Thai law. But now a European coming here will be protected by
Thailand.
that too. But effectively, the update of the privacy policy is aligning it with what's in America, but we don't really talk about it because it's taken for granted. My understanding, I've attended a few talks, there is a bill in process in Thailand which will require some of the same things.
Right.
So it's no surprise I got the Shangri-La message myself, and I think we'll be sending similar messages. I'm sure Accor and Patrick can speak to it, but being a European company, they're probably all over it. But it is a bit of a scramble for us, given that our technology, we have different technologies in different hotels, and there are requirements for encryption and things like that, which to some extent in some places we'll need to do manually, so it's going to be a headache, but it's a good thing for people.
Patrick?
No, not much to add. I think, Marland, you explained quite well, but I think and this is one regulation, but obviously being a listed company, there is a lot of regulation, and we have created a a compliance committee at Accor level, and we have a chief compliance officer now looking to these changes, and obviously, especially with database that we are building throughout our hotels, number of people concerned. I think it's important for people to have the choice, to decide on what data they would like companies to keep or not to keep, or to be excluded. So I think we are looking at this, and now we're talking very much of the GDPR because of the European laws, but I think we have had these issues already in other countries, like in Korea, for example. We launched quite a strong, compliancy data policies. So yes, we are looking at that, and we are dealing with this, and yes, it's getting more complicated. And yes, there is more training to do for our employees because everybody is concerned. I think definitely today, when you are a front office line staff looking at integrating all this information, and it's becoming complex. I think it's important that we come up with the tools, sometimes the e-learning, that we need to have for that.
And it's counterintuitive to the millennials, right? They don't want reg cards. They're saying, oh, if Facebook's got my information, why don't you have my information? So there's some dichotomies there that aren't really sort of working intuitively with the audiences of tomorrow. On this note, we're a couple of minutes over time, so I'd like to thank my panel. And given that, unless you have some last question, please. But if not, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.